Hey everyone, Delphi Trading Group here with our weekly market report that we put out for you guys every week, kind of forecasting where the indexes are going to go. But before we start, let's go back to last week and see what we said about this upcoming week for the markets. Now, if we were to put out a forecast this week, we would definitely be going lower. Okay, we had three gaps at one point this morning when the markets gapped up. So we had a gap here, we have a gap here, and then we had a gap this morning here. Now I have this picture up here as well. These are different gaps. We have a breakaway gap here, the one gap here. We have a runaway gap here, and then an exhaustion gap here. Okay, and then what usually happens is the markets roll over. Okay, so we had that here up until this morning, and the exhaustion gap has filled already. So if we weren't in earnings week, we would definitely be going lower and even maybe forecasting a bigger move lower to head down and fill these gaps. Okay, so you just be mindful of that. Okay, everyone, now that we're back here, we have the SPY daily chart up. The markets are about to close in a couple minutes. And per our discussion last week with you guys, even though we didn't put out a forecast, remember this was here, we did say we would expect the markets to roll over and start filling these gaps. Okay, well, this gap here has already filled right here. And we are now, the SPY is under the 20-day moving average, which is that turquoise one. So again, even though we didn't put out a forecast, hopefully you guys were able to make some money on the downside here because, again, our forecast that we had talked about played out perfectly. Okay, so now what are we seeing here? Well, again, we're closing under the 20-day moving average. The 50-day is down here. This gap is still open. So we are going to go down lower to fill that gap, maybe right above the 50-day moving average. So we are going to continue lower here down towards that gap. Okay, and if we look below here, the volume is going up. Remember, when a stock or index is going down, if the volume's going up, that's bearish. CCI is heading towards the zero line. Stochastic already crossed and is heading lower. So we do think that we're going to get more momentum to at least fill this gap there and maybe even go down to test the 50-day moving average. Okay, so that's the SPY. All these indexes are pretty much, well, the IWM is a little different and a little bit concerning. But first things first, Qs here, and there's the closing bell. Qs, okay, here has filled the gap. Again, very similar to SPY. We were looking for a rollover. It has filled that gap. And now it is closed under the 20-day by about 20 cents. We still have the gap here below, and the 50-day moving average is there. So we are going to go lower on the Qs. Again, look at the volume below. So we're going to keep going lower towards that gap. That is what we're going to do for next week in our forecast. We do have a gap above now, so we are between two gaps. But because of the volume and because we closed under the 20-day, I am looking for that gap to fill or get close to it. Okay, now let's look at the IWM, and then we'll look at Bitcoin. IWM, a very different story here. Okay, IWM ended up filling the gap, but it has not stopped. Okay, and now it is closed under both moving averages. Okay, this is a pretty big deal and pretty bearish. Why? Because now these averages are going to act as resistance as they roll down and go lower. So any bounce attempt could be met with resistance as the IWM heads lower here. Okay, and again, we have some higher volume. Okay, the indicators are, getting towards oversold. So we could see a bounce at some point. But I do believe any bounce will be rejected now that we are under the moving averages. Okay, and there is a gap down here, the first one of many. So I am going to go lower. I'm going to go down to this kind of looks like support level here. Okay, so I am going to go down towards that support possible support on IWM. Now we could get a bounce in the meantime, but that is where I'm going. Okay, and if maybe we'll do this here, I'll duplicate this so we can just kind of get a visual of that support right there, and I can make it even a small dotted line. Okay, so this is the support I'm looking at. If this support does not hold, then we could be going back to these levels down here for the IWM. I'll tell you this, we have been seeing a ton of UOA, unusual option activity, heavy put buying on the IWM ever since up here near around 245. And they are buying the December 233s. They're going way out into December, buying 233 puts relentlessly. So maybe somebody else is seeing what we're seeing here at Delphi. Okay. So let's move, before we move to Bitcoin, okay, we want to kind of show you why it's important to follow us on X. Okay, this is our X channel here. If you guys want to, give us a follow, it is Delphi_trades. And we put out a lot of really great material here. Crypto, stock related, UOA we put out. And in this case, okay, look at this. We went back on October 27th, we posted this chart. Okay. And what did we say on this chart? Something to watch for on Bitcoin. Possible bearish head and shoulders pattern. Okay, if we zoom in here, we can see that Bitcoin was back here roughly around 116,000. Okay, we put this bearish pattern out before it even formed. Okay, nobody's doing that anywhere. We're not only seeing patterns, but we're actually forecasting them ahead of time. Okay, and remember, we told you guys that we closed a lot of our long positions, probably 90% back here when Bitcoin broke below 122, 120. And we are very, very confident that the top is in now. Okay, anything is possible in Bitcoin and crypto, so you can never count it out. But things are not looking good. And again, remember, we put this pattern forecast in before it even started forming. Okay, and what do we have now? Well, lo and behold, look what's going on with Bitcoin. Okay, remember, we put out that forecast right back here, and this has played out perfectly. I mean, we nailed this forecast on Bitcoin, hopefully saving a lot of you money if you were long Bitcoin, because now things are not looking good. Okay, we have this long-term channel that we have put in since we got out back here. Okay, and this is kind of the price action we're looking for now. Okay, there's some support here. You can see where Bitcoin stopped. Okay, crypto trades extremely well on technicals. Okay, so you need to learn how to read charts, but this pattern now is active. Okay, so this is a pretty big deal here on Bitcoin. Now, it doesn't mean it can't bounce back up to test it. Okay, but what does that mean? Well, this pattern now is pointing to sub 90,000. Okay, there is more support here. We do have the channel here. So, we could end up just bouncing around here. Maybe we fail to support, bounce around, and then eventually come down here in this area. Okay, but again, the point is we forecasted this pattern back here when no one else was probably even seeing this pattern possibly forming. Okay, so again, give us a follow on social media. But that's it from us here. Thanks for, again, please like, subscribe. Thanks for coming here, following us here on YouTube. And we'll see what happens next week. Just be very careful. The markets are looking really jittery right now across the board. All right. So as always, good luck trading. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.